We're sending you back to the future!
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Welcome back everyone to an Arkham Horror the Card Game video. Today we are taking a look at the latest scenario pack, Machinations Through Time. This is the latest release for Fantasy Flight Games' Arkham Files series. These are games based on the works of HP Lovecraft and his cosmic horror creations. Now for those who don't know, a scenario pack is a standalone adventure for Arkham Horror the Card Game. It can be played on itself, it can be added into a campaign anywhere you wish. It'll cost a bit of XP to play though. It usually has a unique challenge, a complete story in one package, and it can have unique rewards. Not just in XP, but items or allies and certain assets you can add to your deck and play for the rest of the campaign. So the last one that was released was the War of the Outer Gods, which was one of my favourite scenarios to play. And this one is quite unique. It's very strange. As you saw by the little parody at the start, this is quite a time-travelling adventure. Essentially, the story here in a nutshell is Thomas Corrigan and Mary Zelinsky are these two scientists who, experts in their own field. They've met up, they've met Nikola Tesla, and over time have developed a way to travel through time. Eventually though, things went wrong. Portal opened up to another dimension, as this happens in the works of Arkham Files. There's always another dimension, there's always a portal, there's always something bad on the other side. Going through to the realm of Tinderloss, which is a nasty area full of horrific creations. And scientists have been missing, abductive, and the world is starting to change because of the ripples through time. So first of all, I'm going to take a look at the new keywords. There isn't really any new keywords apart from one, which is the errors. So throughout this game here, you're going to have 3 separate sets of locations. You can have about 16 locations and play at once. This is going to be a massive table hog of a scenario to play. It's not like the other ones where you have just a few locations. There's about 16 out at once. You'll have a set of 5, a set of 4, a set of 4, all out at once. And you'll have a separate set of locations, each one representing a different area. And this is one of the things that I like. Basically, if I show you the cards here, so we have the first locations here. So the instance, they all have the portal locate keyword and they all have past. So locations here are all in the past. You can see there. We have the Arkham Gazette, River Docks, O'Malley's Watch Shop, Childhood Home, and Miskatonic University. And what's great is though, that's the past area, and we can move into the present area, and the same locations again will have changed slightly. So this is good because not only does the artwork change, but sometimes locations change in general. So we have the River Docks again. We've said that Arkham Gazette is Arkham Advertiser. The university is still the same, but instead of being a bookshop, it's a ye old magic shop, and it's changed a little bit too in the artwork, and also the TikTok Club. So for those of you who played the games before, so those locations are familiar. The Miskatonic University, the TikTok Club for instance, the ye old magic shop is present in most Arkham games. And then move on to the future locations. So again, University, River Docks, the Advertiser again, TikTok Club. But you can see there, it's changed a little bit of the artwork. So the thing is though, it says future, but don't forget this is set in the 1930s, 1920s, so future for us is probably like the 70s and 80s for them. And so what's great here is, not only does it have different errors, but you can also move through errors. It doesn't take like a whole act, and then you move across. You can freely move, as long as you use a portal location, between each error as you play. So you can essentially have investigators in a past, present, and future location all at once. But remember though that a past asset cannot enter a present location, present can't enter the future, and vice versa. This is because you can't take someone from the past, an asset, like an ally or something, and move them into the present. It's going to break their mind, they're going to be destroyed mentally. And this leads on to another keyword here, there's abducted. So throughout the game, you're going to be trying to rescue and move around these scientists. The 3 scientists mentioned earlier, you're going to try and move them around. When they're defeated, they're abducted. So rather than losing them forever, they get abducted. You must do a certain skill test to bring them back. And the gist of the game is, it reminds me of Back to the Future because what you're doing here is, you're essentially making these people meet up, do certain tasks in that area, move to the next area, to essentially provide one timeline going along. It's a really unique idea. It's not, initially I thought it'd be kind of boring. I thought I want to just do some farting or some real horror, but it's quite tricky and quite an interesting, unique take on the Arkham horror story. So first of all, I'll show you the story cards. There's a story card for each area, past, present, and future. Each one of these has a small flavour text, says instructions, and then you flip it over and it reveals objectives. Victory 0, but each one has a set number of objectives. So for instance, the past one here says, first one, if you, Thomas Corrigan and Mary Zelinsky are all at the past Machinations University, announce Thomas and Mary have met. The one here says, if all three of you at the same location spend 2 clues as a group, announce Thomas and Mary are inspired by Nikola Tesla. And lastly, it reads, if you're at a past Machinations University, spend 2 resources, announce funding for an observatory has begun. The objective here is, if all 3 abilities on the story have been triggered, activate display, there's a resource token of each ability where it's been triggered. So you're going to have 3 of these out at once. You're going to have one for the past, one for the present, with their own unique objectives, and one for the future. You must complete all objectives on all 3 to win. But in addition to the story cards, you also have plot cards and machination cards. So what these are, these add little flavours to the game itself, depending on what you want to do. So for instance, you have anomalies in space-time, unspeakable abomination, and mob troubles. So each one here has unique flavour text, test instructions. It brings in new enemies at different locations, removes certain enemies from the game. So for instance, this one here will have more focus on the mob enemies, the Sheldon Gang. This one here has more focus on the enemies in space, the sort of the satyr, the angled thing and stuff. And this one here has the abomination enemies in the spaceline timeline, the satyrs and the Hounds of Tindalos. So not only have you got to add these to the game, they also have different abilities here too, objectives here. The problem is here you also need to do these to find a location. You need to complete the game because Corrigan Industries is removed from the game at the start. You must complete these to win the game. And then not only have you got that, but to add to the ever-growing list of problems, you also have machinations cards. Yet again, like the plot cards, these have slight story arcs, different challenges. Redeeming a former colleague, uneasy alliance, a bitter rivalry. They'll set up instructions for certain errors, past, present and future. Flip it over and you'll have new objectives to complete on there, new actions, victory points and other certain effects. So there's a lot to do in this game. So straight away, I'll admit this game is quite hard for a solo player to complete because there's so many objectives, there's so many story cards and plot cards, machinations cards, there's a lot to take in here. So this is clearly designed for more players. It's doable, so definitely, but you've got to know what you're doing. And I will point out here that make sure you read all the cards. You're going to have a lot of cards out, not just the active agenda, locations, but the story cards, machination cards, plot cards, and all the asset cards too. Make sure you read all the cards because my first play for this game is I found myself getting lost in all the cards. I thought, how can I get to this location? How can I move this asset over here? I had to make sure I read every single card. So another thing I like about this is each character, Thomas, Nikola, and Mary, have a past version, a present version, again slightly older here, a bit more weathered, a bit more refined look for Thomas Corrigan there. And then finally we have the very old Thomas Corrigan, Mary Zelinsky. And they're looking very, very old and wary there. So each one is a scientist and an ally. And throughout the game you're going to move these along to different locations, discovering clues and essentially forming objectives. And what it means by announce is, because you're supposed to be playing this game with multiplayer, you're supposed to announce in the past that Thomas and Mary have done this, or Thomas and Mary have done this, so someone in the present can do something else. So it would be great in multiplayer, one person in the present, one person in the past, one person in the future. Ideally, 3 players would be great for this game, 1 in each area. So let's take a look at the enemy cards in here. So we have some interesting enemies. One of my favourites is the many angled things, just a really bizarre mash of bits and shapes. Classic HP Lovecraft horror creation, monster, extra-dimensional, Tindalos, elite, just a big bad enemy. A lot of enemies here too also have different effects depending on where they are. So this is a past location, plus 1 evade and alert. Present location, 1 damage and horror. Future location, 1 fight and retaliate. We have Tindalos enemies in this game, so we have Tindalos Alpha. This is a big Tindalos enemy. I find Tindalos enemies to be sort of like weird hounds, weird like weird beasts. So it's quite a tough enemy, 4 attack, 3 health, 4 evade. So see here, when it attacks you, shuffle a non-story asset you control into your deck, move all damage and horror from that asset to Investigator, discard Tindalos Alpha. Quite a tricky card if you have a big ally out, a lot of damage. The satyrs are quite strange, weird sort of minotaur looking enemies. They have the patrol keyword here, it comes back. Patrol here means that after the hunter enemies move, it will move towards the location of a science asset. Because obviously when it's at a location, enemy phase, if it's ready, do 1 damage to each scientist asset at its location. So it's going to actively move around if you are near it and kill scientists. Don't forget though, they aren't killed, they're abducted, so you can bring them back. We have the Hound of Tindalos enemy, which is a really nice artwork there. It's very bizarre, very strange looking creature. Monster, extra-dimensional Tindalos. Patrol again. Scientist, as you can see here, +1 health when present and 2 health on the future. And the enemy phase, if it's ready, 1 damage to each scientist asset location, and move each scientist asset investigated asset location to Tindalos, so it's going to move around a lot as well. Because scientists are what we need to move around and complete the game. We also have another weird enemy here, the Tathrithra, the Ark Lord of Tindalos, Ancient One Tindalos Elite. It's a very, very weird dinosaur monster looking card. So it has 3 attack, nothing for the health, 3 evade. Massive retaliate and patrol, that's a lot. Has a global health pool of 6 per investigator, so if you got 3 investigators, that's 18 health, that's very, very big. Forced enter location, each scientist's asset allocation is abducted. Okay, that's the weird enemies out of the way. So these are the human enemies now, the Sheldon Gang enemies here. So you have old Sadie Sheldon, a bootlegging kingpin. So much like in the Dulmic Legacy campaign, they have humanoid enemies have aloof. They don't actively attack you. They'll move around though. But you can test here, spend resources to announce a death been paid. This one is a Sheldon Gang. It's weird. It's a humans, but it's massive. It's like a gang of people. Has +2 health investigator. What it does is, if you play a card where this thing is ready, it's got top 3 cards in the counter deck. Put each criminal enemy discard this way into play location, so it will multiply it more and more. And also unique enemy here, Edwin Bennett. So we have bitter adversary or envious rival, 2 separate versions of the same card. Patrol, can't be damaged, does certain effects to scientists again. So scientists need to protect. The target industry is where we need to get to complete our game. A lot of these cards here are very, very nice artwork. They're all like weird distortions, weird like portals opening up, rips in reality, rips in fabric of time and space. You can see here strange cards, Dimensional Breach, Abducted. A Tear in Time is also, if you're not familiar with the Forgotten Age set there. So some really cool, bizarre cards there. As far as enemies go and treachery cards, they aren't too difficult. I didn't find them too hard. They weren't that hard at all. The scenario isn't too bad. The enemies aren't too tough. You can handle them quite easily. The problem is though, you have a lot of things out at once. I'll just show you an example set with the game to see how the game plays. So zooming out here, we can see the table space required to play this game is a lot of locations out at once. We have each one sort of similar laid out. We have the past era over here, present era over here, future era over here. So there's going to be different enemies, different characters in the past, present, future version of each other, different locations. We use Tindalos here as sort of like a base operations. This counts as past, present, future locations, connected to each portal location and vice versa. So every single location here is a portal location and it all connects to this location here. There's a free action, place 1 clue on Tindalos. So take control of a clue on Tindalos location in any area. And also as an action, you can test 3 strength or 3 evade. If you succeed, rescue abducted scientist asset put into play at 10 loss exhausted. So the scientist assets are going to be on the board, moving around. You're going to be spending 3 actions to take them with you to certain locations, spend clues, do certain things to win the game. But also you've got all these objective cards out at once. So there's a lot of things to do at once, and you're going to have to do a lot of reading because there's so much stuff out at once in play. There's so many locations and plot cards and that. But all in all, it's not a bad scenario. Not my favourite, to be honest with you. I do like Murdoch's Hotel. I do like World of the Outer Gods. But I like this for what it is. And what it is a unique, different take on the Arkham horror style gameplay. You aren't just finding horrific clues and cultists and rituals, fighting off hordes of enemies. You're trying to basically get characters to meet up and do certain things in their past, present, and future to save time and space. So pros so far about this scenario. Pros are the errors are really great. I love the error areas. Go through different locations, see them in other areas, seeing the same location in the past, present, and future. I like how quickly you can just travel to different eras. Also, there's a lot of really interesting treacheries in here. A lot of them are varied. This isn't too hard. It's quite a good spread of different skill tests you need to perform. I like how there's plot and machinations card, meaning that you can play this game again and again, get different kind of stories, different kind of setup, add more flavour to the game. You can have different enemy types, different treachery types, remove enemies from the game, put enemies into the game in certain play. And another pro is this is going to be fantastic in multiplayer. 2 or 3 players are going to love this scenario. You're going to love being in different eras at once. There's even optional rules at the back of the guidebook, such as when 2 scientists meet from different eras of the same name, they have a sort of time paradox and faint and are destroyed, removed from the game. Quite a funny little trick there. It's quite a fun little optional rule there for a bit of a challenge. Okay, on to the cons of the scenario. It's a very confusing scenario. There's a lot of things taken at once. It requires a lot of reading, a lot of taking information in. You've got to make sure you read all the plot cards, the machination cards, the story cards, the act agenda, because it's so easy to do a scenario and get lost and get confused and think, I don't know what I'm doing here, I need to check. It took me a while to realise that on the act card here it says, you move to a location. If one or more scientists assets at a location, move any with you. I kept wondering how to move scientists around. I didn't understand how I could do that, and then I realised I had to read back at the act card. You might have thought it's a rookie error, but there's so many cards out at once, I got lost and didn't realise. Another thing is, it is probably best designed for multiplayer, so solo players are going to struggle because you have a lot to do. There's a lot of moving around and testing, moving, testing different errors. I think Rogues and Seeker class cards are going to do really well here in solo, but make sure you've got a way of moving fast and getting clues fast. That's what you need. And then evade enemies too, because you don't need to kill enemies here. Evading probably is the best key to win. The only other con I can say for this is I didn't really find the horror element here to be too strong. It isn't quite horrific, isn't quite I fear for my life, it isn't quite, oh my god, it's a scary location, the enemies are horrifying, these spectres, ghosts, demons, monsters are going to attack me. It feels more like just a general story I'm playing through. And that's not the con I can think for this game. I didn't really feel like the horror was strong in this scenario. It's not a bad scenario. I still think Gone to the Abyss is probably my weakest. It's just so hard to complete. But it's a very fun scenario. It's a nice change of pace, I suppose, than just fighting monsters again and stuff. So even though the horror's not there, I still enjoy the scenario. I still thought it was a unique take on an Arkham horror game, having to guide people around to do certain objectives. And that's it for this review. Any questions about this game, comment down below. If you want to see a playthrough of this, if you want to see me to try and do this game solo, I will try. Comment down below and what characters you want to use, what you want to see. And as always, like and subscribe if you can, and thank you for watching.